I have to be honest, you might be saying, Emma, you just moved. Why am I struggling so hard to explain this? And it is so, so good. Hi, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma, aka midsummerknits, and in this video we're going to be doing a knitting podcast. So I have been doing a knitting podcast basically every single month. I feel like I space them out by around 4 weeks, sometimes more, sometimes less. And I want to be so real with you guys, I again don't have any FOs for today's podcast. My last podcast, I talked about how I hadn't had an FO in a while, and I was hoping to have one, aka the moby sweater, which I'm working on for my next podcast. That being said, I did not quite finish it. I have made a good bit of progress on it, and I will show you guys my progress so far later in the video, but it's been just a really busy past month for me. There's been a lot of things going on in my life, and considering just how much time I need to knit on this project to actually finish it, I just haven't had quite enough time to get there. But I do still have a few things to share with you guys today, so I'm really excited for today's video. Before we get into much more, I wanted to mention that today's video is sponsored by Yarnalia. Yarnalia is a really cool yarn company that just started about a year ago. One of the things that I find coolest about their company is that their yarn is made by fiber artists for fiber artists. So although they're a relatively new company to the sort of playing field of yarns, they took a lot of time when they were working on developing their yarns and just worked with a lot of fiber artists and sort of got feedback on their yarns, which I think is really, really cool and definitely should be a prerequisite for anyone starting a yarn company. If you've followed my Instagram for a while, you've probably seen this work in progress that I've had going on, which is my Luna tee. This is a project that I've been wanting to make for such a long time now. I've literally had it in my queue since like last year, and it is just this really, really cute, tightly fitting tee that has this beautiful broken rib, and it has short sleeves, but they're a little bit on the longer side, so I think it just looks very simple, very elegant. It has this raglan design where you have these very elegantly placed increases, and I've just liked this design for quite a while. I love the little mock neck, the broken rib. I've just really admired and liked this design for quite a while, and I've been wanting to make it, and I'm making it with Yarnalia's Skylark yarn. So actually, when I posted about this work in progress on my Instagram for the first time, I did get a few comments of people saying, what yarn is that? This is like the prettiest blue, like just a few comments of people admiring it. And I'm so happy that you guys noticed it because this is just the most gorgeous yarn. Skylark is a fingering weight single ply yarn. And I'm going to try and get some B-roll shots of Skylark because it is just the most gorgeous yarn. I actually couldn't even tell from Yarnalia's website how pretty it is because I feel like there's just a lot of dimension and sort of like a tweedy quality to the yarn that you can't necessarily see from sort of further away pictures. So I'll just try and show you guys some close-ups of it, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I also love this specific color, which is spring blue. It is just, to me, this perfect shade of this beautiful light baby blue. And like I mentioned, I absolutely love the sort of tweedy quality of the yarn where it has a lot of dimension packed into it. And I think especially for the Luna tee, which has this gorgeous broken rib texture, it just really brings out that tweedy quality of the yarn and the dimension of the different colors in the yarn. It looks so beautiful. I also grabbed this other yarn from Yarnalia, which is their woolly yarn, which is worsted weight, 100% superwash merino wool. I got the colorway Feather. If you guys have been watching my channel for a bit, you'll remember that one of my goals for this year was to make myself a neutral colored garment because I tend to gravitate towards color a lot, and Yarnalia does have beautiful color options, but I thought this yarn would be the perfect opportunity for me to try out a more neutral colorway. And this one also does have that gorgeous dimensionality of the different shades of gray. It just is very pretty despite being more of a sort of plain and simple colorway. And this one is also so soft. I feel like my biggest concern when it comes to getting wool when I'm planning to make a tank top, which is the case with this one, is that it's going to be a little bit itchy when it's placed next to the skin, but genuinely this one feels very soft and comfortable, and I'm really excited to work with it. Yarnalia does have a variety of different options as well beyond these two. Their yarns range from alpaca to wool acrylic blends, and I like that they have such a big variety, and they are also very affordable. And on top of that, I have an extra discount code for you guys. It is midsummer 30%, and you'll get 30% off on your order, and this runs until June 1st, 2023, so you guys have a couple of weeks to use it. Thank you so much again to Yarnalia for sponsoring this video. I have really liked trying out their yarn, and my experience of knitting with it so far has been really, really amazing. So I'm so excited to be sharing this discount code with you guys and helping you to save money on your purchase from Yarnalia. So I did want to talk about my current whips a little bit more just because I briefly touched on the Luna tee, but didn't really go into too much detail. This has been my main whip that I've been working on for the past few weeks. If you guys watched my last podcast episode, you'll know that I was working on the Moby sweater, which I still do have as a whip. And those are the two sort of main works in progress that I have. However, this one is sort of taken over as my main whip for the time being, as I'm waiting for more yarn for the Moby sweater. But I do want to try this on for you guys really quickly and just show you how it's looking so far. I have posted a little bit about this one on my Instagram, but I have made a little bit more progress since my last post, so I do want to show you guys where it's at right now. And this has been a really fun work in progress. I feel like this is one of those tops that you work on that you're just always sort of progressing, so it never gets boring. For example, right now, even though I am working on the body, which is going to be sort of like the longest part and the most sort of boring section of work, it does have optional decreases throughout the entire body. So essentially there's never going to be a point where I'm just knitting the straight pattern without sort of counting rows or doing anything interesting. So I really love that. So this has just been a really fun whip so far. And I've also loved working with the Yarnelia yarn. Even though this is single ply yarn, which I don't tend to gravitate towards quite as much, I haven't really had too many issues with it being very splitty. Like, yes, there will occasionally be a time where I split a stitch, but honestly it doesn't happen very often, and I'm actually able to knit this without really looking at my hands too much for the most part. So I really have had a positive experience with this yarn, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, this is the prettiest color I've ever seen in my life. So let me stop rambling and try this on for you guys really quick and just show you how far I am so far. All right, here it is. Let me zoom you guys out so you can see a little bit more detail. That's not the right way. Okay, so as you can see, I've knit basically the entire bodice. And it has this absolutely gorgeous mock neck. I think it's such a unique detail, and I haven't seen many knitted tops that have this detail. And you guys might have noticed that I tend to do this pretty often, but I do like to switch over to working on the sleeves before I actually finish the body for most of my garments that I make. And this is just because I want to make sure that the yoke and the sleeves fit properly and how I expect them to. And sometimes it's also because I have a limited amount of yarn and I'm scared that I'm going to run out. So if I do run out, I want to sort of crop the body as opposed to not having enough for the sleeves. So that is not really an issue for this one. I don't think that I'm going to run out of yarn because I have 2 more skeins of this yarn left. And this one skein was able to finish this entire like bodice section. So I don't think that'll be an issue, but I think that once I finish the skein, which is almost done, I am gonna go ahead and do at least one of the sleeves just to make sure that it fits as expected and looks good. But honestly, it fits like a glove so far. I'm really surprised that it is fitting so well. I actually thought I had kind of messed up on the fit because you do these raglan increases for a bit, and then after you complete the raglan increases, you're supposed to be around your armpit. And if not, you just keep knitting for a little bit longer. And I was pretty far from being at my armpit. I had to knit an extra like 1.5 inches before I actually split for the sleeves and the body. And so I was a little bit nervous that maybe I'd done something wrong, like I should have split earlier, but honestly whenever I've tried it on, it has fit really well. And once I do a single sleeve, I think that it will confirm to me that I did not mess anything up. But so far I'm absolutely loving both the yarn and the pattern and how this is coming out. It's honestly been such a fun and relatively chill knit, and I'm really excited to see how this comes out when I finish it. And up next for knitting updates, I have my Moby sweater. So I was really hoping that I would have an FO to show you guys in this podcast episode, but unfortunately, this sweater is just turning out to be a little bit more work than I expected. Not to mention I've mostly been focusing my efforts on the Lunity, so this one has taken a little bit of a backseat. Remember when I said I was a monogamous knitter and then I went and started like 4 different projects and haven't finished any of them in like 2 months? Yeah, but honestly, I have not been bored of this project at all. I have just been taking a little bit of a break from it because I wanted to work on the Lunity, and because I'm also waiting on yarn for this one to arrive. So in my mind, I'm not being too disloyal to it, but I will definitely come back to this. Probably when I finish my Lunity, I'll be back to working on this one full time again. I feel like I'm not really the type of knitter who is going to get really bored of a project and just put it down. I'm really only going to put projects down if I'm struggling with them. And that's not the case with this one at all. I actually tried this on several times and I love how it's coming out. Also, just to give a little status update, I don't have too much of an update since my last video. I did finish one sleeve, and then the second sleeve, I'm getting close to halfway done at this point. And then the body I need to finish as well. I did hope that I would be able to give you guys a little bit more of an exciting update for the podcast, but unfortunately we're just not quite there yet. And this is also just me trying to be real with you guys as a little bit of a slower knitter or someone who doesn't have quite as much time to put into knitting on a daily basis. I just want to be honest and say that not every single month do I have an FO. sometimes multiple months go by without me having FOs. And that is okay. It is perfectly fine to move at a little bit of a slower pace, and in some ways, that's also what knitting is about. So I think those are all of my knitting updates. I do have a couple of other topics I wanted to touch on in this podcast episode. If you guys have never seen my podcast episodes before, I typically do like to start off the podcast episode talking about yarn, knitting updates, things like that. And then after I sort of give updates on all of my knitting ventures, I will talk a little bit more about my life and media I've been consuming and just have a little bit more of a chill chat with you guys. I do have a few different topics I wanted to bring up in this little segment. First of all, being that I am going to be moving soon once again. And if some of you guys have been really keeping up with my channel, you might be saying, Emma, you just moved. And that is true because I moved into a 6-month lease when I moved into this house. So I literally moved 6 months ago and now I'm doing it again. Because of that, I have been a little bit stressed lately. I've just had a lot of things going on. I've had a lot of people visiting and then a lot of travel going on, and on top of that, sort of trying to find a new place to live. So things have been a little bit chaotic, and that's why I didn't post a video last weekend. I do want to say that I'm going to try my best to be consistent throughout this moving process, but I could definitely see myself missing a video or two while we're in the weeds of moving. So please just have a little bit of grace with me, and I will try my best to keep consistent on this channel. But also, I do want to say I don't know where I'm moving to quite yet. So this house I'm currently living in is in the Lake Tahoe area, which is this very, very beautiful lake in Northern California. And 6 months ago, before I did the move here, I had lived in San Francisco. And so my boyfriend and I are currently trying to decide if we want to stay in Tahoe or move back to San Francisco. And it's honestly very dependent on if we find a place that we like in both of these cities. And we're still really trying to figure things out. So it's been an interesting time. That's another reason that I haven't gotten a ton of knitting done, is just lots of things going on in my life at the moment. So I'm definitely trying to squeeze in knitting wherever I can. But I think that during my last moving process, I also dropped the ball a bit in terms of posting videos, and that will probably be the case again this time. I also wanted to talk about the fact that Taylor Swift announced Speak Now, Taylor's version. So if you guys are new to my channel, I am a giant Swiftie, so I do tend to talk about Taylor Swift related events in this channel whenever I get a chance. If you are interested in Taylor Swift, that's totally fine. I will give you guys a timestamp as to where you can skip ahead to, where I will be talking about something different. But for now, if you are interested in Taylor Swift, then you can feel free to stay and listen to some of my thoughts about this. So if you are new to Taylor Swift or you don't know too much about her, you probably won't know exactly what the deal is with all of her Taylor's version albums. And I can just give a very brief rundown of this, which is that essentially Taylor recorded her first 6 albums with a company called Big Machine Records. And after she left Big Machine Records, the man who sort of owned all of Taylor's music ended up selling her music to Scooter Braun, who is a person who was previously really nasty to Taylor, who cyberbullied her and did all these horrible things to her. And so essentially Taylor was like, this is really not cool. Like, I'm not going to work with this person who has been really, really horrible to me in the past, and I don't want him owning my music. And there was a little bit of negotiation where they were trying to work together, but Scooter wanted her to sign an NDA and say that she wouldn't talk about anything, and Taylor wasn't willing to do that. So essentially her music is now owned not by Scooter himself, but by a different company who is also giving part of those profits to Scooter. And because Taylor does not want this horrible person to be earning money from her music and owning her music, she has sort of taken a stand and said, I'm going to re-record these 6 albums and re-release them for my fans, and I will own the new versions, or the Taylor's versions of these albums. And another thing that she's done, which has made it really, really fun and exciting, is that she's also including some songs that she wrote around the time of making these albums, but decided not to put on the albums at the time. And so she is bringing back these old, new, from the vault songs, which just makes it really exciting for fans, because we are not only getting like a newer version of those old albums, we're also getting some songs that we might not have heard before, or we have heard before but haven't been officially released. And it's really cool seeing her taking a stand against this trend of artists not owning their own music, as well as really cool to see her sort of taking lemons and turning it into lemonade and making this a really fun and exciting process for her and her fans. Like, it has just been really cool to see. And so she has already released 2 Taylor's versions, which are Fearless and Red, and she just finally announced a 3rd one, which is Speak Now, Taylor's version. And Speak Now is a really amazing album. I love it so much, and so I'm so excited to see Taylor's version. And honestly, she had been teasing Speak Now, Taylor's version for so many months that I feel like fans had been expecting it for so long, and the fact that she finally announced it is just really exciting. There's going to be 6 vault tracks, and also I want to say some of my favorite ever Taylor Swift songs are from Speak Now. Haunted is one of my absolute favorites. Dear John is so good. I love Better Than Revenge, even though I don't know if Taylor's gonna change that song in any way. There are just so many amazing songs on that album, so I'm really, really excited to get a more mature version of these songs, as well as some new vault songs. If you are a Taylor Swift fan, I would love to hear, what were you doing when the announcement dropped? Were you watching one of the live streams? Were you there in person? Or did you just hear it like after the fact? For me, I actually had an inkling that Taylor was going to announce something because she'd been teasing so many things, and especially like the day of the show, she had been teasing things as well. And so I was watching the live stream for a good portion of that concert. I tuned in for Enchanted because I was like, maybe she would announce it now. And then she announced it at the surprise songs when I was also tuned in. And it was really exciting being there for that announcement. That is the second album announcement I've been there for after Midnights was announced at the VMAs, where I was sort of like, I don't know if anything's gonna be announced, but I should just watch just in case. And they have both been insanely exciting. Like, I was jumping up and down and super, super excited. If you are a Swiftie, comment below, tell me where you were when you heard this announcement and what song you're most excited to hear. Otherwise, I have one last topic to cover with you guys in this podcast, which is to touch on the media I've been watching and consuming, especially when I knit. This has been a long-standing part of my podcast just because I think it's fun. Like, whenever I'm knitting, I'm almost always watching TV. Sometimes I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook. Like, there's always something that I'm watching or paying attention to aside from just my knitting. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of knitters, especially experienced ones. Like, just the act of knitting itself is not necessarily going to keep you entertained. You might want something else to watch or listen to while you're doing it. So I do have a couple of things to talk about with you guys. In the last episode, I talked about how I had finished watching The Last of Us, and I thought that was such an amazing show. And I have actually been still on a Last of Us kick because I absolutely loved the show. I was so sad when it ended, and I decided I wanted to watch a playthrough of the video game just so I could get a little more content. So I have been watching that, and there are actually two video games. There are part 1 and part 2, and part 1 was already covered in the first season of the TV series. So I already watched the playthrough of part 1, and it was very similar to the TV series. It just had a little bit more like fighting scenes and a couple of changes from the show. And then they have a part 2, which is going to be the next season or couple of seasons of the TV show. And so I'm watching a playthrough of part 2 right now, which is covering plot that has not actually been covered by the show. And it is so good. I cannot wait to watch the show. It's going to be amazing. I don't want to give anything away because I know there's going to be plenty of people out there who just watch the show and don't want to know any spoilers, so I won't give anything away. But I'm just going to tell you guys, it's amazing. I can't wait to watch the show. And also the playthrough is incredibly long. So I'm watching Julian Solomita, who is a really cool streamer and YouTuber. I'm watching him do a playthrough of it, and I just like his personality. He's a really cool and funny guy. And I've been watching his playthrough of it, and literally it's been like 20 hours of content already, and there's still more to go. So it's been a really good thing to just put on while I'm knitting because it's pretty interesting to watch, but there's just a ton of content to watch in it. And that has been one of the biggest things I've been watching recently. It's been kind of the thing that I put on every day. I have also been watching the new season of Ted Lasso that's coming out. I have to be honest, I don't love watching TV shows as they come out every single week. It feels like I'm so much less invested versus if I were to binge a TV show, and I would absolutely binge this TV show if I were able to, but it is coming out week by week, and I have been watching it, and it's been really good. It's such a fun TV show. I feel like almost every episode ends on a light note and makes you feel sort of hopeful for life and makes you feel thankful for the people around you. So it's a really great show. I would really recommend it if you haven't seen it. And I'm excited to see how they're going to sort of tie up all the loose ends because I have heard this is going to be the last season, but I feel like nothing feels very resolved yet, and I'm interested to see where it's going to go. So those have been my two main watches recently, and I think that's it for what I wanted to talk about in the podcast this week. Again, make sure to use the Yarnelia discount code. I will have it listed down below along with a link to Yarnelia's website and their Instagram and all of that fun stuff. Once again, thank you to Yarnelia for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!